Damo, you would have been given your predictions on Channel 9 and AFL.com as to what your big headlines were going to be at the start of the year. One that no one saw coming was how big and influential Toby Bedford was going to be for GWS, and then in turn how influential GWS could be in the final series. Those two things have essentially run into each other on the eve of the finals, and it's getting quite dramatic.
Yeah, well, they've run into each other coming out of the home and away season, and yet we're not yet get a decision on it until 2 days before the game. This is the incident. Now, just to remind people, this game finished at 9 o'clock 2 Sundays ago, and this happened late, and the match review office decided the next day to ping Bedford there for the contact on Fisher, and they decided to take that to the tribunal. Now, the confusion then started, Jimmy, and you're a GWS board member, so let's declare that. That's the involvement and the conflict, if you want to use that word, you've got on this. But I'm staggered. We forecast this last week on this show, how this incident from 2 Sundays ago will not get its finalisation through the AFL systems until Thursday, 2 days before that next final that they're playing. That's staggering. And then you've got the actual issue itself, an incident itself, which clubs that I've been told today are glad that you as a club, your club, has taken it to the appeal stage.
Yeah, I agree with all that, and it's not ideal, but we do have one more opportunity to try and get Toby Bedford to play, and you touched on it, Sam. His importance to us and the role that he plays is the way Adam Kingsley wants to play the game. It's get up high, a lot of speed on the game, high tackling pressure. But it is what it is. We can't do much about it. We can only get there when the AFL is ready regarding the tribunal, just touching on that point. But there are clubs...
So your club, though, did ask for a delay to proceedings. So the Monday revelation of the match review office saying it was worthy of a week, the club then wanted to appeal that through the first stage of the tribunal, but it couldn't sit after you asked for that extra extension?
Well, the unique nature of playing a Sunday game at 6:30 caused everything to be pushed back a little bit, because by the time we get out, and of course you've got the curfew at Sydney, we're not arriving back into Sydney until the Monday. Of course, the way the AFL had structured, people who were working there regarding tribunal weren't available, and so we had to just sit and
Why
wait.
weren't they available?
I'm not sure at this stage why they weren't available, but they're...
Damo, why wouldn't they have been available?
Well, you had the awards night on the Wednesday of last week. I don't know. I've asked the question. The AFL said that GWS had asked for an extension to the ideal time frame for them, but that was the Tuesday night. So beyond that point, it is in dispute. And then once they didn't do it last week, it was then going to be heard Monday, which it was. And then the appeal aspect of it, I still can't believe it goes from Monday to the Thursday.
Your footy club's broken, wasn't it?
No, rugby was a bit strong, Sam. Look, we've still got an opportunity to appeal the sanction which we thought he shouldn't have got, which was a week's suspension. We still felt like, and we still feel like it's a football act, and we thought we ran a pretty fair case in front of the tribunal. They disagreed. We've got one more avenue, and we're going to probably run that again.
You were on the match review panel. How would you have graded it?
Well, it's a different time, Sam, because things are getting...
But you follow this stuff really closely. How would you have graded it?
Well, I'm big on, and I've said it on here a number of times, I'm big on football acts and being a little bit more lenient on football acts and being a little bit harsher on non-football acts.
Lordy, did you see it as a worthy of 1 week? Because a lot of clubs I've spoken to, in passing it must be said, don't believe it to be worth a week.
Yeah, we'll look at the Zac Fishers statement, and sometimes you shouldn't just judge things on a player statement, because they often will try and look after the player involved. If we can get the Fisher statement up. Here it is. It sort of come on me by surprise. It happened really quickly. I felt it on my front shoulder, so I wasn't really able to protect myself. And I look at the one where McCartan got off, where McAdam only weeks ago broke his cheekbone. I feel that Bedford should be playing, and I've never fallen into the fact that high profile v low profile. I've never fallen into that, but I feel today and tonight that if that was a higher profile player, they'd be playing in this final. And I think Bedford should be playing.
I just can't see him getting off. Yeah. With the stance, take the system out of it, right? Just there's a lot of politics behind this, as we know in everything in footy. The stance that the AFL have taken around, if you can avoid contact with someone, avoid it. They will say that Toby Bedford had no reason to go and step out and make contact with Zac Fisher, and the fact that he went anywhere near his head, that'll be a week. Now, this is not me arguing for the AFL. I don't think he should be missing a week. I think he should be playing. I'm just saying the way that the AFL have structured their positioning around head contact, we've seen recently with the NRL and the send inquiries into what's happened with head contact, I would be staggered if he got off.
So were you surprised by the McCartan one then, where they used the bounce of the ball?
And that's why the inconsistencies, I think, really can frustrate people, and I can understand why GWS would be frustrated. Let's hope, for footy's sake, that Toby Bedford's playing and that he doesn't miss a final for that. Let's move on. Damo, you talk about big news. The chairman of the AFL, Richard Goyder, who we know, of course, is in turn the chairman of Qantas, has, for those reasons, been embroiled in the recent mess, and I say mess respectfully because that's basically how it has been reported, of the goings-on at Qantas that has seen their CEO, Alan Joyce, essentially forced into early retirement 2 months before he wanted to. Are the links that are made fair and reasonable, do you think?
Well, whether they're fair and reasonable, they're valid, Sam, and clubs are talking about it.
They
have noticed a similarity in the transitioning of a long-term CEO at both organisations, and highly successful, almost without peer, the two people involved in Joyce and McLaughlin for what they did for those organisations. But the transition out of their time as CEO into the next phase of operations, there are parallels. And they've noticed that and noted that and have done so before this week even. And again, I don't expect them to do anything about it. They don't seem to do anything about it these days, the clubs, despite having access to shaping how the game looks at commission level. We've discussed this on this show, I think, with Eddie McGraw in that chair, I think weekly, as to what the Commission hasn't done, and the selection of commissioners is a topic. You're all over that one too, Jimmy.
What's your views on him, Richard Goyder, as a Commission chairman? Say if he was to leave tomorrow, how would you assess him or describe him?
Look, he's chosen to do as he felt best fit, and that is to let Gillan McLaughlin run the game. And then, until the transition of Gillan McLaughlin out of the role, which he himself announced in April of 2022, it obviously took a lot longer than that, and he's still there now. Until then, it wasn't being questioned at all. I think some of the questions are valid now, particularly with the failure to this point to get a replacement for Jason Ball as the football type of commissioner on that board.
Well, his own succession plan then, Damo, because obviously at some stage he's going to step away and we're going to fill those commission spots hopefully soon with some football credibility on there. But himself as chair of the AFL Commission?
It was put to him too on the day that the AFL announced Andrew Dillon as Gillan McLaughlin's successor, what was going on in his space, given he's been there a long time himself. And this is going back now about 3 months.
The AFL's in great shape. Proper succession is part of everything, and in due course there'll be proper succession at the Commission. My role is to, and that of the Commission, is to give Andrew as much support as we can, and then in due course there'll be appropriate succession at Commission level as well, and I'm sure that'll be as seamless as this will be.
It won't be in the same time frame as Gillan McLaughlin officially leaving, that being post-grand final this year now. That's when he'll be effectively finishing up. But it will be something, I believe, in the next 12 months to work toward.
I think you've summarised it really well, Damo. And I have no problem in a chairman allowing his or her CEO to run the business how they think it should be shaped. Like, ultimately, that is the role of the chief executive. I think where the waters start to become a little muddied is that when the succession plan of the CEO is elongated and drawn out, and many people have made that assessment, then it does reflect on the chairman. And we're going to see more change at the AFL. And I think, it's a fair and reasonable conversation to be having around some of the huge changes at the top end. We know Gillan McLaughlin is in his final days at the AFL. Travis Old, basically his number two, the CFO, has gone to run the Grand Prix. Kylie Rogers has in the last few days pulled out of the role to be Hawthorn CEO, so she will remain there, which I think is good news for the AFL. Rob Old has been talked about on many levels at several clubs, including Hawthorn. And Brad Scott essentially finished his coaching career, Damo, to then run footy ops at the AFL and then was dragged back into it. So if ever there was a time that AFL leadership is in the spotlight, I think it's now.
Oh, it is now, yeah. And look, the CBA, that's more a Players Association issue than an AFL one, but ultimately it hasn't been done. We've just completed an entire home and away season without one. I know it rolls over, and I know that there will be retrofittings of certain deals, but there'll be a lot of players not getting caught up in what is about to come by way of the increase. And when I say the home and away season just completed, the AFLW Season 8 has just started again without one, and there's no sign of that happening. And that was meant to be one of the final ticking points for Gillan McLaughlin before he did exit.
We've been very fortunate, they have been, that the footy's been good.
Exactly.
Very fortunate, because the lack of decision-making has been bewildering. And I know we're not going to play it now, but what Lee Matthews spoke to you about last night around that he decided to stay with Brisbane, well, you're going to miss out on people like that. If you're willing to wait 8, 9, 10 months and not make decisions, well, people are going to decide, you know what, it's just too hard for me. I'll move on and keep doing what I'm doing.
I think that's a fair criticism.